about last week, but also mini computers, robotics, and those little things called nanites, which will be able to actually be put into the human body. There will be an era of in which permanent physical infirmities will come to an end. We've been using kinds of machines for people who have lost a limb to help them regain mobility, and what will happen now with our technology is these prosthetics will become smart, like our smartphones and our smart homes. And we're going to see an evolution of these prosthetics much quicker and much deeper than we've seen in many, many years. For example, people will be able to, instead of spending what could go up to over $100,000 for a custom prosthetic, you can now use 3D printers to build custom prosthetics. And that would cost less than $1,000. There will be a field of biomimicry in which these prosthetics will be able to provide a more natural experience and feel more like a natural leg or arm or whatever. And they'll be able to be made more comfortable because they'll be lighter. And also they can be installed directly into the bone, like a dental implant in a way. And that would make it less painful. Now our brain will be able to be implanted with certain scanning devices that monitor your brain waves and help you to control anything that is run by computer, and that would include any robotic limbs that you might have. So your brain would have a device that would be able to control robotic limbs if you needed to. It could also help steer a motorized wheelchair. In fact, they're doing that now, apparently. And by the mid-2020s, they're saying that this will become the standard in helping amputees and persons with disabilities to lead more independent lives. And by the 2030s, it'll become advanced enough to allow people with spinal injuries to walk again, just by relaying their walking thought commands to their inner lower torso through a spinal implant. There'll be smart implants that will help to pump blood around the body. So sort of a bionic heart in a way. There are also implants that will help people improve their performance. Then there are those health regulating implants that will help you monitor your body, your heartbeat, your blood pressure, all of those things, which we already have to some degree, but these will be much more prominent. And then the nanites that I talked to you about, nanotechnology, these things will be swimming through your blood if you choose to use them, and it will help to deal with, help you build your antibodies, viruses, bacteria, can attack cancer cells, so on and so forth. You can take basically the best medical equipment and knowledge needed to treat a disease or perform surgery and encode it into a dose of saline a dose that can be stored in a syringe and injected into anyone in need of medical care. It could make everything that we've known before obsolete. Now, leading researchers in surgical nanorobotics see a day when a minor surgery just involves a doctor injecting a syringe full of billions of pre-programmed nanobots into a targeted region of your body. And this is stuff that we've seen in Star Trek, they would find damaged tissues. They can get rid of unhealthy cells. And then the cells would be stimulated to get rid of the damaged cells and regenerate. Fascinating stuff. And then we have a new field here called regenerative medicine, which uses techniques of tissue engineering and molecular biology to restore the function of diseased or damaged tissues and organs. Basically, regenerative medicine wants to use your body cells to repair themselves instead of replacing or augmenting your body's cells with prosthetics and machines. This is a much more natural. This is a more holistic way of doing the healing than some of the robotics that we've seen before. So, those are all things that give us a lot of confidence that injuries and illnesses will basically become a thing of the past. I think maybe the most important thing will be not the ability to do this, but the availability of it for everyone. Because particularly, I think, as these technologies first become available, they will probably be quite either expensive or quite rare or hard to have access to. So if we're not careful, we could see a time where there's this strata of, just as we're seeing huge income disparity, those that can afford to have these kinds of techniques will be able to get them, and those who can't, well, they might not be able to do it. But with things like 3D printing and so forth, perhaps the cost will start to become less of an issue. Well, that's interesting. All right, but until such time appears, we are stuck with the tried and true methods of boosting our immune system. So here's another way that we can do that, because sometimes through our work week, if you live in a crowded city or you travel a lot, if you spend your time in daycare centers and schools, work environments, you're exposed to heavy burdens of germs. I mean, there was a report out this week that showed that there are more germs, considerably more, 3 to 4 times more germs on your steering wheel than there are in your toilet. So huge amounts of germs that we're exposed to every day. So to boost the immune system means to be able to sort of interact with these germs and resist their negative qualities, if you will. So you do that by eating right, getting enough movement, exercise, and rest. Try to reduce your stress, and cultivating healthy emotional states. Those things are mainly done through meditation and mindfulness. But besides those things, there are herbs that you can use, traditional herbs, ancient herbs, that have been known to help enhance immune function. And one of them that I've used is astragalus root. And it's interesting to talk about astragalus root as we're talking about Chinese New Year, because it is a Chinese medicinal herb. It's now widely available and very inexpensive. You can find it, I think you could probably find it in many grocery stores these days, but certainly in any of the vitamin or drug stores that you see. Now, recommended products have 16% polysaccharides and 0.2% flavonoids. So you can look for those on the back if you want to try astragalus root. The thing about astragalus root is, in order for it to help your immune function, you have to take it regularly, and you have to begin to take it. It's not a and this is true for all of these herbs, and I think people misunderstand these. It's not a cure. It's not like you get sick and you take astragalus root and it makes you feel better. You can and should take the astragalus root, but that's going to be a long-term thing. You have to take it over a period of time in order for the immune system to build up. So if you get sick, if you have a cold, you're feeling worn down, it's not going to immediately resolve that. It will take time. So you would have to take that in addition to whatever medicines you might take to alleviate symptoms temporarily. So the best thing to do if you're going to use astragalus root is to get started before you get sick. When we get into the thick of winter, which we're going into now, you begin taking it so that you prevent yourself from getting sick rather than taking it to cure the symptoms or mask the symptoms or take care of the symptoms. That's the holistic approach. That's the approach that many people have difficulty thinking that way, because we're trained to think of, if I get a cold, I'll take this medicine, instead of thinking about, what should I take to stop me from getting sick in the first place. That's where the wellness situation comes in, and it takes a change in the way we think about things. And that's going to take a change in the way that doctors think about things, and that our medical system thinks about things. And I do believe that'll happen. All right, last thing we need to talk about before we wrap the show up is what I teased earlier about non-sugar sweeteners and your health. So there's been a new report on it, some new research that was done in Europe that delved into evidence for and against the use of these artificial sweeteners. And they analyzed the results of 56 studies comparing the benefits and risks of using sweeteners among adults and children. They assessed differences in weight, blood sugar control, oral health, cancer, cardiovascular disease, mood, and behavior among users and non-users of these sweeteners. And in most cases, the team found no statistically or clinically relevant differences between people who used the sweeteners and those who didn't. In other words, the effects were the same. As far as weight is concerned, the differences between those who consumed non-sugar sweeteners and those who didn't were negligible. The researchers called for long-term studies to determine whether or not non-sugar sweeteners are safe and effective alternative to standard sugar. It's interesting. It seems to me like more research needs to be done in that area, because, that certainly seems counterintuitive that a non-sugar sweetener would have the same effect as standard sugar. But apparently these findings support earlier studies that showed artificial sweeteners don't lead to weight loss. And some evidence has actually linked them with higher risks